Continue. Okay, so we're live now, so welcome everybody out. And last week we talked about, we played a Jim Rickards video, which basically was how he would invest in war. And it's probably the only certain investment nowadays. And then we had another video about why ferment, which was talking about fermenting, of course, cabbage and tomatoes, making tomato sauce and stuff like that, or salsa. And the why was, why you didn't have to cook it, didn't have to heat up the kitchen, use a lot of energy. There's several good reasons, and it turns out to be a better product than something that's totally sterile for your stomach and everything. So anyway, anybody wants to comment on that any, we can, but otherwise we will step into the preparedness news of the day, so to speak. So today the markets were mixed but very volatile because there was lots of earnings coming through after the market closed. Gold was up a little bit, back over 2,400 again. Goldbacks were down a little bit compared to last week at 473. Silver was up at a little bit at 28.52. And the gold silver ratio is still mighty high at 85. Tilt and zeros, which are the long-term treasury ETFs, were both fractionally up in anticipation of Fed rate cuts, if they ever come. Wheat was down a nickel today, below $5 again. So it's mighty cheap wheat. Consider how many loaves of bread you could make out of a bushel of wheat. DBA, which is Agricultural Commodities Fund, was up a little bit today at 23.83. And DBC, which was down a few cents, which is a more broad-based commodities fund, which should do well in an inflationary time. It's more precious metals and oil and energy, has some agriculture in it, but it's pretty much balanced. But the agriculture has performed better in the last year, mostly due to cocoa. It's been on a tear. So anyway, after tonight, I'm not going to report on these two anymore, but instead of DBA, it's going to be PDBA. Instead of DBC, it's going to be PDBC. And the only difference is that the ones on the right do not issue a K1, so it just makes your life a little less complicated at tax time. And especially, I mean, if you've already got these others, I wouldn't sell them, but and switch. But anything new holdings, I would put in these, especially if it's in a tax advantaged account like a IRA or 401k or something. Just make your life easier. XAR, which is what Rickards was talking about last week, the military industrial complex. Everything I follow was up today except for GE, and GE was up like $9 last week. So I think it's just resting a little bit today. It was only down a couple of bucks, but everything in the industrial military complex has just been on a tear in the last couple of weeks. And I got something else. We'll talk about that, why that might be. UNG, which natural gas, was up a little bit at 14.01, and the futures were down a little bit, 212. And all the companies that I follow, except for Chesapeake, were up a little bit today. Cost of production is about 230, so the futures price of natural gas is below the cost of production, so that can't last for too long. U.S. oil is down below $75, and so normally that would, with that going down, that would normally indicate a recession, in the assumption that supply will be less, there'll be more supply than demand. That's been my most successful short position right now. Bitcoin is down to 66,000 today, even though yesterday it was on a tear up above 70,000, and then it got pulled back from there down to, I think, like 63,000 yesterday, and today it was down a little bit more. So we've been talking about the state of Wisconsin pension plan invested in 2 Bitcoin ETFs. Suspect that since they've showed the way, that more states will do the same. But that's kind of old news. The new news is there's 8 new ETFs began trading last week for Ethereum. Ethereum is down a little bit, at 32.76 today. So it's kind of been, so far, it's been one of those buy the news and sell, or buy the rumor and sell the news. Ethereum's kind of been going down ever since those 8 funds have been authorized. I think it'll pick up eventually, but okay, so the not so rumors of wars. I don't know what you heard today. It's kind of overshadowed by the Olympics, but China and Russia are flying joint formations off of Alaska with their best fighter bombers. You know, like there'd be a Russian plane and a Chinese plane and a Russian plane again. So that was kind of interesting. Still got kind of a war on fossil fuels with the current administration, but there again, that would be a supply thing. I would think that if Trump was to get elected, it'd be back to drill, baby, drill, and supply should come up and prices probably go down even further. Everybody complains about Biden, but he's been real good for keeping fossil fuel prices up. It's because lack of permits, but anyway, careful what you ask for. War on middle class, food, medicine, housing, war on cash. It's going on big time. A lot of news about the Fed now, which is available now, but thoughts that cash will be eliminated after the election. Of course, that may depend on who gets elected. War on food, having a lot of countries, Germany, France, India, Italy, USA sometimes. The war on food, war on gardens, and in some places. I think we can't produce food as efficiently as modern agriculture, so therefore we shouldn't try. War on meat, bill going through to require all cattle to be chipped. Looks like that's going to be funded. War on cancer, in my opinion, has surrendered. We've got a lot of highest cancer rates we've ever had, and it's especially affecting young people and older people, with colorectal cancer being the leader. So now seasonal information. So if you wanted to plant trees this fall and winter, it's probably a good time to order them. Think about propagation of other things that you may already have, like comfrey and blueberries and fruit trees. things like that. Could be air layered. We talked about that week before last, I think. It's time to get that fall garden in, even though it's too hot to germinate a lot of seeds right now. They need a shade over them, a lot of them to germinate outside anyway. And if you start them inside, then you put these tender young plants out there where everything is dry and scarce. Your insects will just eat them up the first day, it seems like. So I'm not sure what the solution is necessarily, but some rain and cooler weather would help. So plan your harvest of what you've got. You got bees, they need to be looked at. You might consider ordering your seeds and trees for next year when they go on sale kind of at the end of the year or into the season. Keep harping on everybody should have a supply of potassium iodine in this crazy world. So here's the point where we talk about any progress anybody would like to share. Things that you've done in the last week or two. Dared to get out from under the air conditioner and do some things. Anybody got anything that they want to talk about?
We thinned our herd.
Yeah, a little bit today. Need to thin some chickens now.
Especially the ones that like to sit on the roof and start crowing at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Those go first.
Set your alarm for early.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I like, because of my schedule, I like to sleep until about 9 o'clock, but I'm having a hard time doing that. This hot weather, it's kind of good to get up early and get some stuff done, but then I got to have a nap before I go to work. So anyway, so you know, it's good time to start thinking about wood cutting and you know, buying some things to put away. I think we've got
you tried a new recipe last week, didn't you? Or this week? We had the zucchini flour that I made.
yeah, I'm trying to remember what I put that on.
Cube steak.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I use that as the breading for it. So,
It was unique.
yeah, and I thought it would. I thought it turned out pretty good. I think it would be good for breading on okra or something like that too. Anyway, our garden platter is beginning to look better this week, and quite a few tomatoes and our long beans, and, red noodle beans, and bitter melon. Lots of bitter melon. They like the heat. Gathered some of our blue potatoes and some couple of cucumbers. So had quite a bit coming out of the garden this week, and that turned into this. So that's the my version of fried soup.
How did it taste?
It was good with some fresh tomatoes diced up and put over it. So this is the potatoes and the red noodle beans and that's the
Bitter melon.
Bitter melon. So, and I put a little meat in it too. Don't have to, but that was pretty good. And you can crisp it up at the end. I usually fry mine in coconut oil, but at the end you can crisp it up by sprinkling like cornmeal you know, like you would do with okra. And I usually put okra in this, but my okra crop totally failed. I planted 3 times and never did get an okra up in the garden. So this year, not sure what the deal was on that, but kind of okra and the red noodle beans are kind of my standby base for this soup. But anyway, like I said, at the end you can put cornmeal or flaxseed, ground flaxseed if you want to go keto, which is what I usually do. Or I think I put some of the zucchini powder in there. Use that as my breading. Got pretty good. And today there was the people that came out and butchered 3 lambs. Those off the place. Oh, let's go through some of the herbs and weeds on the place. Took a little walk. Can anybody identify this? This is a medicinal herb, actually. These burrs are kind of a pain for having around sheep, though. So I'm trying to thin it out. I wouldn't recommend anybody planting this on purpose, but seems to be getting scattered around pretty good. And I didn't know until today it was such a good bee source. It was covered in the honeybees and bumblebees, and so it's because it's in bloom right now. So anybody know what that is?
No,
Well, it starts out with burr. This is burdock, and it's a bitter. I tasted some of the leaves today, and they're about as they're more bitter than bitter melon, more bitter than curly dock. But the roots of this is one of the ingredients in Essiac tea. You know, the long term, long ago. So one of the early cures for cancer, supposedly. It's about 4 other things, 4 to 6 other things that they put in it, but burdock root is one of the mainstays of it. But digging up that root is, you know, it grows down like a carrot, except for grows down about 2 foot. So it's kind of hard to harvest the root, but I suspect after eating one of those leaves, you could use the leaves too. So then I got another one I saw today that, and I'm not sure this has any medicinal use or not, but does anybody know what this weed is? I was hoping somebody does, because I don't know what it is. It's been on my place for years, and no class of livestock that I've had will eat it. So that makes it a pretty negative. But I don't know what it is.
Yeah, hold on and I'll try to ID it.
Okay,
I'll come back and tell you.
great.
Is that horse nettle?
No,
Is it real stinky? It's not Jimson weed.
nope. I kind of thought it was Japanese knotweed, maybe, but that was as close as I got. I have the app. Sounds like Mike has the app, so maybe he'll come up with it. Any luck, Mike?
Doesn't look very good right now. It says valerian, but I don't think so.
Wouldn't think so, but I don't know what valerian it is either, or what it, well, I know what it is, but I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. Let me try a different app.
Okay. It's just got kind of a jagged tooth on the edge of the leaf.
I was thinking it looked like perilla, but it's not.
No,
Jagged tooth on it.
and it doesn't.
It might be false nettle, small spike false nettle.
Okay.
That looks reasonably close. Well, maybe.
I mean, it doesn't have any stickers or anything on it. It's fairly smooth to the touch, and it has, whether this picture shows any of it. Yeah, here's like from last year. It has kind of a stem that comes up with the seed on it, and makes the seed head. Well, here's one this year coming out.
I think the quality I got is a little subpar. The other one comes up as possibly Virginia copperleaf, but the one that I feel like I get the best results with is called Plant Net.
Uh-huh.
So I get the least false positives with that one. It's
Uh-huh.
not as shiny as the other one I have.
Now, Virginia copperleaf, doesn't that have kind of a minty smell to it and almost a green and purple color to it, and indeed turns copper in the fall?
If that's the case, this one does not turn copper in the fall. I've followed for several years trying to figure out what it was.
Like he was saying, he doesn't think it's Virginia copperleaf, and also I think Virginia copperleaf's got a smoother edge.
Yeah.
So I think he's right that it's not Virginia copperleaf.
And it's a round stem, so it's not a mint, but
No.
it's kind of and the leaves don't really have much taste. I mean, it's kind of bland.
The Virginia copperleaf is poisonous.
You would know.
I think it's more poisonous for livestock. As far as I know, people don't eat it.
I think my best guess is small spike false nettle, but really don't know.
Okay, well, let's not waste any more time on it. But I was hoping somebody would be able to know what it was. So
Maybe somebody in the extension office would know. We'll have to get Les to try and figure that one out.
yeah. So anyway, let's go ahead and go with our video tonight, and this one, I think. So can you see YouTube now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Years expired and had to throw out. The food bank can't take expired goods either. So I felt so very bad wasting food. Well, hey everybody, I'm Bill with Live Simple, Live Free. And I have a video idea that I wanted to do for a while. But when I got this comment from Chris Fry, it really brought it to the forefront of my mind. I thought, I need to do that video. It's talking about how to properly store food. And as Chris found out, if you don't rotate things properly, it's going to go bad. Now, what Chris is talking about here is that in a video I did recently, I finished it by saying, store what you eat and eat what you store. So let's look at that a little bit. Store what you eat. Whatever it is, however it is that you eat, that's the food that you want to store. You don't want to start storing a bunch of food that you don't ever use, that you don't know if you're going to like it, or you don't know how to prepare it. That's one of the problems with so many of the emergency food supply companies that sell packages of food is that much of that is foreign to you. You're not familiar with it. So you might not like it. Or I know a lot of people, when they first start prepping, they don't know what they're doing. They just go out and buy, 50 pounds of beans and rice. Well, that's fine. You can survive on that. But do you know how to cook it? You're going to get awful tired of just beans and rice unless you have many, many different ways that you can cook it. So if that's not the way you normally eat, you're going to have to completely change your diet in an emergency. And that's not a good thing. So what you want to do is, however you eat on a regular basis, that's the food that you want to store. So store what you eat. Don't set yourself up for a surprise when you're ready to eat, or you're ready to use your food storage and find out it doesn't work for you. Now you can store obviously whatever kind of food you want, whatever kind of food you're most comfortable with. If you want to do canned goods from the grocery store, that's probably the cheapest and the easiest way to go. Personally, I don't like canned goods like that much, but I would certainly eat it if I had to. But I also recommend, obviously, if you watch my channel at all, we recommend Thrive Life food, which is freeze-dried food. Now, when I was talking about the freeze-dried food that you might not be familiar with, I'm talking about companies that sell these packages that all have entrees in them, where it's a, beef stroganoff or something like that for 2 people or for 4 people or something. You don't know what's in those packages. You're not necessarily going to like the way they cook. You're not necessarily going to like the meals. That's the beauty of Thrive Life, is that because they're all individual ingredients, you can just use them to cook all of your own favorite recipes. So you can continue to eat just the way you normally do. Now, if you starting with Thrive Life, I do recommend that you at least try a few just to get used to how to use them. It's not difficult to learn, but it is a little bit of a learning curve. So just open a few of the cans. If you're only buying it for food storage and not for daily use, at least just open a few of the cans, try a few of them just so you can get used to how it works. So you're not just kind of stumbling around when you actually have to use it for emergencies, because you'll already know how to use it. I think that's a pretty basic concept, easy concept to understand. Just store the things that you already eat. Now, eat what you store. This is the place where most people who make the errors is they don't eat what they store. They have a feeling like, I've just bought all this food, I'll put it away for long-term storage, I'll just leave it there as my emergency supply. I only eat it in case of true emergency. And then all of a sudden they realize 5 years has gone by and most of what they have in there is expired. It's no longer good. Now, I think personally that the expiration date on the can, you can eat it considerably longer than that, way past even years beyond that. I would just look at the can and make sure that all the seals are still good, that none of the seals have ruptured or cracked or anything like that. And then I wouldn't have any problem with eating something that's been expired for a couple of years. But you can avoid that by rotating the food. And instead of just, like I said, having everything in a storage area, and then you buy your groceries and eat it, and you don't even think about the storage, the emergency food until you need it. What you need to do is every single time you go shopping and you bring something home, you need to rotate that through your emergency supplies. So here's how to do it, and this is the most basic way to do it. It's also the most difficult and most pain in the neck, but it'll work without any additional expense. Let's say you've got shelves, okay, that are this deep, and you've got all your food stored, and you're storing cans, okay? You go to Aldi's or Walmart or Kroger, and you just buy cans of food. So let's say you have a bunch of cans of peas. So you put them in a row, and then here you have a row of carrots, and here you have a row of green beans, whatever. But you put your peas in a row, okay? And every single time you use a can of peas, you take it from the front. And then when you go to the store and you buy a can of peas, you don't put it in your pantry in your kitchen to use. You take your new peas and you put it all the way in the back, slide them all forward. That way you're always taking the oldest can of peas and you're always adding the newest can to the back, and they'll slowly rotate forward. And that way, every single time you're going to cook a meal, instead of going to your normal, pantry in the kitchen, you go to your long-term storage pantry and you take the oldest can from the pantry to cook your meal before it goes bad, and then you're putting your new stuff in the back. So does that make sense? Always rotate your food. Always eat the oldest and store the newest. Now, the way I just described it on the shelf like that, when I first started this, that's the way I did it. I had some shelves in the basement and I stored them all there, and it worked. Quite frankly, it was a pain in the neck, but it did work. But every single time I would go grocery shopping, I would come down and I just had shelves on the wall. I should have had a table. I didn't. I just set the new stuff on the floor. But if I had a can of peas that I just bought, this was before I was using Thrive Life, I was just using canned goods from the store. If I had a can of peas, I would look at the row of peas and I would have to take every can down and leave them in the right order on the floor, take the newest can, put it all the way in the back, and then put all of those cans back into the shelf again. But that way I got the oldest one up front and the newest one in the back, and it really worked. That's what you need to do. You need to rotate your emergency food storage. Now, there are definitely better ways to do that if you want to spend a little bit of money and get some food rotation systems. You can build them out of plywood if you want. I'm going to show you here a food rotation system that Thrive Life has that works really well. And they are a little bit pricey, I'll admit, but they work really well, and they could save you tons of time in rotating your food. And if you do it properly, it's going to save you hundreds and hundreds of dollars in food that does not go bad because you're rotating it. Now, once you see this system, you can, if you want, build a system like that out of plywood if you're handy, and you can do that. But the Thrive Life food rotations system has 3 different sizes. It's got the large is for the family, the number 10 family can, and the 1 gallon can. The medium is for the pantry can or for quart size cans, and then the small is for it's like soup cans from the grocery store. Now, I did a video several years ago that talked all about this, and I showed how to put it together and how to use it and all of that. I'll put a link in the description below and at the end on the end screen. So if you want, you can go and see that whole thing. But let me just show you a short little excerpt from that to show you how the food rotation system works. But you can see now how this works. When you buy new food, you put it into the top, it rotates around. That way, when you take this, you're always using the oldest one so you can rotate it. See how that works? And then when you buy a new one, you just put it at the top. Very cool. For the family size cans that I have here, each track, each bay holds 7 cans, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then there's 4 racks, 4 bays across per row. So you got 28 on each row. So that means if you're using this rack for the family size cans, it'll hold a total of 112 cans. That's a lot of food. Now, just so you know what I'm talking about here, let me show you the difference in sizes. On the left is the Thrive family can. It's a 1 gallon can. That's a can of ground beef. In the middle is the Thrive pantry can. That is a can of spaghetti sauce. That's like, or they call it tomato sauce, but it's like if you go to the grocery store and buy a can of Prego spaghetti sauce or something like that, but this is in powdered form. And then on the right is the typical size can you get from the grocery store. That's whole beets. We actually use canned beets because for some reason Thrive does not have freeze-dried beets. I don't know why. So we have the beets on there on the right. So there's the 3 different sizes. Now, besides the large rack that I just built, I just showed you, they also have these smaller racks that they call Consolidator. And it's designed to fit either the grocery store cans or the pantry cans. These are also, they're smaller. And if you have a large kitchen cupboards or a pantry in your kitchen, these may very well fit into your pantry. They have all the measurements on the website, so be sure to measure carefully before you buy them. I hate for you to buy them, find out they don't fit in your cupboard. So, you know, measure that carefully. But this is actually the picture on the box. And this shows the grocery store cans. And then you can see it's completely customizable as far as width, because they have a narrow one in there in the center for tuna cans. But we will not be using it for those size cans. We will be using it for pantry cans. And there's the actual rack down below. I took out the narrow one for the tuna so that the pantry cans will fit in it. So this works very well for pantry cans. It's also designed so that this is the brace that attaches them together, and you've got another one on top. And if you want to stack them, this will work as the bottom brace for the next row. So you can stack them up higher, 2 or 3 high. You can also connect them on here, so you can extend them further to the side. You can make this whole thing as big as you want. And like I said, it'll store the pantry cans that are in there now, or these size cans, but this is a little bit, I would have to adjust the size for that. So now I've actually taken 2 of these consolidator racks and attached them together right here. For now, I just have a piece of plywood sitting on top. I got to do something more permanent, but that'll sit right there, and that'll hold all of our pantry cans. We love the Thrive sauce mixes, so this is going to work perfectly for this. This is the creamy white sauce. This is the classic tomato sauce, spaghetti sauce, basically. Okay, so there's the Thrive Life food rotation system. Now, like I said, however you can rotate, that's what you need to do. If you want to get one of these, that's great. If you want to build your own sort of rotation system out of plywood or however else you can figure out how to do it so that they rotate automatically. Or if you want to just do it the way I did it first, where you put the oldest or the newest in the back and you always take the oldest from the front. However you do it, store what you eat and eat what you store if you want to keep a good, healthy food storage emergency pantry going. Now, as I'm doing this video, we're right in the middle of the lockdown, and the last time I looked, the racks, the food storage racks, were all out of stock. I'm very sorry about that. I assume they're going to be working on restocking as fast as they can. But this concept that I'm teaching you is much bigger than that. You know, understand to rotate your food. And if you want to get a Thrive food rotation system, I'm sure they'll be coming back in stock soon. But this at least lets you know what they are and how they work. And if you don't like to do that, then however you can, make sure you're rotating so your food doesn't get destroyed over time and you don't have to throw it all away and start all over again. There's nothing more heartbreaking, like Chris Fry's found out, than having a large food pantry, emergency food pantry, and have to throw it all out and start all over again. So anyway, I hope that helps. I know many of you are just beginning to store food because of the pandemic. You realize now the necessity of it, and you're just getting started. So I wanted to give you these concepts. Store what you eat and eat what you store, so that you can get started on the right foot.
Okay, so any questions or comments? I just think it's kind of interesting, you know, he's talking about in the pandemic and people starting, and it seems like we're at the point now where people have already forgotten about the pandemic, and you know, don't need to do that anymore because that's over. But, yeah. It's kind of a simple concept, but I think it's important. You have,
I would think that the types of foods that they're showing is just not the reasonable type of food that we're going to be eating. So you have to actually make your judgment calls on exactly what the foods are you eat, or find a way to have containers that you could rotate in that kind of a system. But you would have to get a lot of number 10 cans with good lids and that type of thing
Yeah.
to be able to do the type of storage. The freeze dried to do in volume for us just isn't as reasonable.
yeah, I agree, you know, and, you know, if you look at what one and two people households, I mean, number 10 cans is just not, you know, even though it was freeze dried originally, once you open it, it's going to go bad, you know, probably within a year if you're in a humid climate. And so everybody kind of has to adjust this to so they don't waste a lot of money, I guess. And the concept of you know, using grocery store cans, I think for a lot of people works better just because they have less waste. And you know, I mean, you know, for me, I use a can of some kind of beans, you know, probably at least 5 days a week, you know. And with that, I can do a whole lot of things, you know, and have a pretty good meal, you know, depending on what's in the garden. I can add that to it, or you know, even during the winter time, you know, there's always I'll always fry up some, you know, a slice or two of onion to start out with. And most of the year I can go out by the front step and strip off some oregano and add that to it, and just add different things, you know, maybe fry up a couple of pieces of bacon to start out with, you know, with it. Just lots of things you can do with certain basics that comes out of a can. There's a guy that I'm gonna play a video to from that. His name's Keith Snow, and he's a chef, you know, classically trained chef, but he kind of specializes in cooking the harvest or cooking peasant food from around the world. And he does a lot of interesting things, you know, things that he serves for $20-25 a plate in his restaurant are just things that, you know, poor people and farmers have been eating for centuries. Just think about the canned items, like a couple of, you know, can of beans is one thing. A can of diced tomatoes he goes through. You know, because with that can of diced tomatoes, and you can get those, of course, with peppers in them, or all kinds of things, if you want. But you can turn that into tomato soup. You know, you can turn that into pasta sauce. You could turn that into, you know, lots of different things. And, turn it into chili if you got meat available. You know, so think about storing those kind of items versus, you know, just like a can of peas or a can of carrots that's maybe not as useful, especially for one or two persons to make something out of in a short notice. But I think I got one here. He makes well, this one he's using the Thrive stuff, but show you how he makes minestrone soup real quick.
Hey folks, I'm going to show you to make a very easy, hearty, and delicious minestrone soup. You're going to need mixed vegetables, tomato powder, red bell peppers, and lastly, green beans. Prep time only around 3 minutes to gather the ingredients, and your cook time should be 30 minutes so all vegetables are tender. Getting started in a large soup pot, we're going to add the mixed vegetables in there and then toss in the vegetarian stock cubes. You can use any stock cubes you like for this. And then purified water. We don't want any chlorine aftertaste in our soup, and that looks like a lot of water, but the vegetables will absorb quite a bit as they rehydrate. We're going to toss in our red bell peppers. And then this is when we get the tomato powder in there. Now this lends a wonderful tomato flavor to the entire soup, and it is super easy to use, a great product. The last ingredient for the time being is going to be green beans. Now these give great texture and really great flavor to the soup. We toss them in there, put the whole thing on the stove, and then we turn on our heat, give it a quick mix. And this is going to need to come up to the boil and then be turned down to a simmer and allow it to cook for 30 minutes. So you can see it's bubbling away there. And we're going to add our chickpeas. You could use kidney beans or white beans, whatever you like. And that is ditalini pasta. It's available in every supermarket. And that goes in there, making it extra hearty. We're going to put the lid on it, simmer it for about another 15 minutes, and that would complete the 30 minutes. And then at the end, you're going to want to adjust the seasoning. So give it a taste. In this case, I added some kosher salt to it. And for extra flavor, I'm using dried thyme. So I put in a teaspoon of dried thyme. You could use oregano or Italian seasoning, whatever you like. Give that a mix through, and you are ready to serve. Now, as you can see, this is a very hearty and filling soup. Takes one pot to make it, so you're going to love making it, and the flavor is spot on. I hope you give this one a try. And I'd also like to invite you to visit Foods.
So anyway, what'd you think of that one? It's probably hard to hear. I turned it up all the way, but it's just low volume on that recording.
It was pretty good on the volume on the phone here.
Okay. So any thoughts on
Yeah,
that
sounded fine to me.
there again?
It looked tasty.
Yeah. Quick and easy other than the simmer time.
Almost as fast as the soup I made today.
Almost. So everybody, while we're watching this next one, think about your 1-can recipe that you could make.
We're going to make a beautiful white bean soup. Now, before I get started, these are excellent beans, and they've got a whole host of products. And I use Bush's beans and all kinds of their stuff, excellent quality. So that said, we've got a heavy-duty cast iron pan here. We're going to start with a little extra virgin olive oil. And again, as you've heard me preach before, any of these soups can be made to be 100% vegan or vegetarian. This one, we're going to add a few things. I'm going to reach over here and get a teeny bit of bacon fat. Now, we cook with whole foods here and a lot of really healthy things. So a little bit of this is not going to kill us. So we'll take just a little tablespoon of that, and you'll be amazed at the end, the flavor that that little bit of bacon will add to this dish. So we'll start with onion. This is all organic. Carrot and celery, which is known as the mirepoix. So we'll put that in there. Right away, we'll come with our black pepper, a little bit of kosher salt. After these sweat for a few minutes like this, we're going to add 1 cup of diced organic tomatoes and their juice. Then we're going to take our, this is 2 herbs. This is a tablespoon of rosemary and a tablespoon of fresh thyme. We're going to add it all right in the beginning like that. We're going to take our white beans
And white beans are very healthy for you. They've got a lot of protein and a lot of fiber. We're going to mix all this through. And then this recipe, we're going to use the Pacific organic chicken broth. So we're going to put about maybe 4 cups, a little less, 3 cups maybe. Look at the recipe. It'll come out perfect. And then a little more seasoning like that. Pepper. And this is the type of soup that we'll put the stick blender in later and thicken it up a bit. But this is a delicious wintertime soup and one of my personal favorites. So now we'll put a nice heavy lid on, cover it up, turn it down, and wait. Okay, our white bean soup should be done cooking now. We're just going to give it a quick little blend with our hand blender and serve it up. Okay, so now we just put it a little blend to thicken it up just a little bit. Man, this looks really good. And that rosemary and thyme are coming up out of the pot. It just smells awesome. This is a great dish that I find everybody likes. So we'll put a little of that on there. Now to finish this up, we're going to take a little Parmigiano Reggiano and a rasp. And again, if you're a vegan, you could leave this step off and make sure you don't put chicken broth in the soup, obviously. So we put a little of that, and in the style of great Italian food, drizzle just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on top, and you've got an unbelievable, what I would call Tuscan white bean soup. Give this a try today. I think you're going to love it.
To see more tips, techniques, and videos, visit harvesteating.com. 4 seasons, 1 lifestyle.
Okay, what did you think of that one?
Took enough to eat.
Looks yummy.
This needs some cornbread with it. Fortunately, I
Sure.
don't eat much of that. Let's see.
Take it out of the Tuscan and put it in the South.
Yeah. But it's interesting that they took polenta from the South to to Italy. So anyway. Yeah. So I got a couple of pictures on here from something Liz created today. Out of our food storage. You want to talk about what's in this picture?
Right there, you can see the smaller jar is chicken that we actually had harvested off of our place, we think 2 years ago, and had canned because we're running out of freezer space. So we have it in jars. I had Winston go look for where we'd stored it. And then I don't know if you realize that when avocados are ripe and ready, you need to use them right then, or you can put them into a jar and fill it with water, then store it in your refrigerator. And so what you see next to it floating there are small avocados that I'm going to put in the spare refrigerator so that they'll keep. And we have pulled those avocados out at different times, sometimes 3 to 4 weeks later, and they're still beautifully pretty bright green on the inside. No darkening, no strings developing in them. It's a wonderful way to store your avocados instead of maybe taking them and cutting them up and then freezing the avocado. They're fresh and ready to use for any guacamole or whatever else you want to. So I took that chicken and I've been making chicken broth, bone broth, as I have a carcass. And I've been storing the chicken broth in half-gallon jars, and I opened up a gallon worth of chicken broth. I used onions and carrots and I put cabbage in there. And then because my food storage, I go over to Sharp Shopper over in Harrisonburg. I picked up these 28-ounce cans full of green chilies. So I made green chili chicken soup. I didn't add any cheese to it. Did add cabbage. I used a pound of white beans that I put through the Instapot, and I made up 2 gallons of soup. So the two of us have got 2 gallons of soup to be able to use. But because we do have a few sick people at work, they're going to get blessed with some soup too, or at church. So anyway, the second one is Winston's bowl of soup. And you see some white blobs in there. He did put some really good sharp cheese into his soup. But the chicken, I only used a half a quart of chicken in there, shredded it up. But it was, like I said, homegrown chicken. Probably putting it into the jars to can it really was the best, because when you let a chicken go run through the yard very much, they get a lot of muscle on them. And so this softens up the chicken to be able to be shredded to go into the soup. But it was yummy. And we added a little bit of lime powder to it, because I like to have a true lime and add it to water, because I'm getting tired of just drinking plain water. And we added it to the soup, and we had an argument. It's almost 2 gallons of soup. And I think you need a lot of lime powder to just really have that lime burst. But Winston's kind of like, let's put 1 packet in the 2 gallons. And I'm thinking that's just too thin. But anyway, we have our different taste. So whatever goes into the refrigerator will only have a very light amount of lime in it. And then I will add lime to my personal bowl. Just like if I were in Mexico, I'd season it up to my taste.
So anybody else thought of a recipe that they use out of their food storage? I just thought of one thing that he said about the white beans, about them being nutritious. They are nutritious, but black beans are the most nutritious because of all the phytonutrients, I guess, in the dark coloration of them. Just like purple foods are more nutritious than white foods. Purple potatoes versus white potatoes, as an example.
Red cabbage as opposed to green cabbage.
Yeah. And red onions versus white onions. A lot more nutritious. So if you got a choice, always go with the blues and the purples. As per my blue corn chips over here. So anyway, the other thing I heard him talk about was using your stored rice to make wasn't risotto, because that's a pasta, right? But he would take
the rice.
He would take the rice and toast it, and then make a peasant dish out of that. And they had after he got the rice cooked, he would also cook chicken that he was going to put in it, and fry that in a Dutch oven or whatever with a little bit of oil, and then scrape the fond off, and he'd just cook it on one side, and then he'd put his rice in there to cook with the liquid chicken broth or whatever, and then he'd put the chicken back in it, the other side that wasn't cooked down, and that would turn into kind of like what we used to call our burnt chicken dish. You don't tell them about that one.
Oh, we had an electric skillet, and I put chicken in the electric skillet, and then got distracted probably with the kids because they were quite young at the time, and it got kind of burned to the pan, and we were looking at it. That was dinner, and it was kind of horrifying. But so we went ahead and dumped water and rice in there and turned the chicken over, and it really ended up being good. And from that point on, the family was like, can we have burnt chicken? So it was our own special dish.
It's funny.
Yeah. You
So-
run a dish and you actually can eat it still.
Yeah. So anyway, this week we talked about, you know, eat what you store and store what you eat. And I thought next week we would talk about plant what you eat and eat what you plant. So if you want to think about that for next week, about things you might plant and eat, and that you should always have a plan of eating what you plant. So, anyway, so if nobody else has anything, we'll close out for tonight. But thanks everybody for coming out, and we'll try to do it again next week.
Thank you.
Right.
And thanks for the avocado tip.
Yeah.
It saves a lot of money.
Yeah. I'll start buying them again.
Yeah. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Night.